And start the recording. I'll give our stragglers a couple more minutes before we get started. As I said last week, we start out pretty easy and ease into the class. And the whole idea is to suck you in, thinking that, wow, this class is going to be easy, and then slam you in the middle in the end. So don't get too comfortable. Okay, get very comfortable. But it is an important aspect of data that you need to learn and be very comfortable with. Uh-oh, the cat's back. Daniel, what's your cat's name again?
This is one of two, and this is Daisy. She's the younger
Daisy.
one. She snuck in the room when I went to go close the door, so I'm like, all right, I gotta get on.
Yeah, have to deal with it. So we're still missing a couple people. I'll wait another minute. Actually, 4 people. I do want you all to be in the class. I'm gonna try something a little different for some extra credit too at the end of the lecture, but another minute, we'll get started. Oh, Frank, you're another mystery guest, so you have to introduce yourself to me and to the class. You weren't here last week either, if he's here. Oh no, it's just a window with the name. How do I unmute? There's a
You can
little,
hold down spacebar and you can temporary unmute, or you can just be unmuted.
yep, or I can unmute you
Oh,
too.
I found it.
Great.
Can you hear
Oh,
me?
yes.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm taking this class because I need it for the degree I'm taking. And currently, I just work at a gas station for nights.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, but yeah, that's it.
Okay. What degree are you going for?
Cybersecurity.
All right. We need cyber professionals. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started. We don't have the music anymore. You missed it. Well, that's kind of your problem. Let me make sure I got everyone in attendance. Jordan's here. Is Garrett or Leah here yet? No. Hopefully they'll show up. All right, on to week 2 and into February. I hope that you all got outside over the weekend. It was probably one of the best weekends that I've seen in a long time for January, even for Arizona, with the mid-70s and the sun. Yeah, we're supposed to have one more week of winter coming up here with blustery weather, um, and getting below 70. I know it's harsh to look forward to that, but we can bear it. All right, let's get into our lesson. Thank you all for completing the assignments. Let me just check the chat. Cut out my video and it's not letting me turn back on. Rejoining. Okay, that's Daniel. All right. I try to keep track of the chat and keep you all engaged. All right, so it was pretty straightforward week. If you missed the assignment, you can always complete it for a deduction, everything except for the quiz. I'll say that right away. The quizzes are not, you can't retake the quizzes, but well, the one assignment this week was install SQL Developer. I really need you to finish that one if you missed it. So, all right, moving ahead. We're on to module 2. We're going to learn a little bit more about querying the database, understanding the structure of a relational database model. And I think some of you, because of the quiz, I guess you've all done probably the best I've seen for the most overall, because I ask you to do something that we haven't even covered yet. But if you're curious and as much of an overachiever or any type of overachiever, and most everyone did, even the trickier question about projection and selection. And that's defined if you go in any SQL textbook or whatever, they talk about projecting or selecting what it means. All right, so what we're going to talk about this evening is the select statement, basically what you use to view the data in your table, and then the where clause, how you filter it. All right, so our objectives, we're going to look at concatenation, which is basically an operation that you can perform on strings or text, edit and execute and save SQL statements. The good thing about Oracle SQL Developer, it's an auto-save scenario. So even if you don't save it, click on the file save, and I'll show you that. When you exit out of the developer, it will actually prompt you to save, and you can even rename it, which I suggest. It selects its own folder unless you're savvy enough to create your own directory structure. I didn't want to open up that there. And we will go over that as we get into queries. I do want to check, though, before I continue, does everyone have SQL Developer in whatever your iteration is? And you can unmute or just give me a thumbs up. Does everyone have the developer installed and ready to go on this?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Because I said I'm going to check one last time, and then that's it. You're on your own as far as the developer. Did anyone chance the Visual Studio Code version of it because you want to be a high-level programmer? I had a couple of students do it last time, and then they decided that it didn't really help them. But anyway, glad you all have it installed. We will go from there. All right, so we're going to talk about literal values of a data type of the data type character, which is strings, number, or date. Those are the three main data types that we'll be dealing with our relational database model here in this class. And it's an Oracle thing that those three you have to learn first before you can go onto anything else. And lastly, we're going to look at the distinct keyword, what it means, how you can differentiate between using that and why. And of course, Oracle wants you to know the purpose of why we're forcing these objectives on you. So if you're writing an article about the Olympics, you should know how many different countries and athletes are participating. And I do remember, well, in my lifetime, the day this was all done by hand, believe it or not, no databases, because they wanted it to be accurate, but obviously it was tedious. Unfortunately, using SQL, the job does take a short amount of time, especially with the high-end computing. In addition, output can be formatted to read like a sentence, and we're going to talk about that. You know, creating the output that it can be easily read and moving from that. So you're going to learn the many ways that SQL can be useful. And just to tap onto that, you rarely will see core level SQL anymore. It's probably embedded in some type of language, which is important. All right. First thing I want to talk about are tables. Tables in Oracle and any other database system is basically the core of what you need to concern yourself with. This is the true entity, and that's a term that you should be familiar with. It's the fundamental building block. And that result, when you see the result comes back, that is a table, and you're querying a table to get a table. But it is the thing that you really want to wrap your head around. It's used to store and organize data efficiently. I do have to mention, believe it, question, comment? You can always interrupt me. Oh, no. All right. So there was a time, even during my lifetime, where there really weren't tables, or it seemed like it was just one big giant table or just a big file. But the whole relational database model was created. Then we have what we call rows and columns, and we're going to talk about that. But so basically the organization, and you're looking at the our employees table, and you're going to get to know that quite a bit as we query it. So you can enable things like retrieval of data, insertion, updating, deletion, all from our little table. All right, so the table, as I said, it consists of columns, and these represent the attributes of the data, how it's labeled. And that's kind of the vertical component. Each column has a name, a data type, and a size. Please remember that. That may come back to haunt you in a quiz or something. So in the employees table, we have employee ID, last name, first name, email, phone numbers, and others. And then there's rows. So the columns, vertical, and then rows. And this is mostly common sense, but I do need to make sure you can identify the consistency of a table. So each of the row represents essentially in a database structure, and you can probably know this, a single record. And if you're looking for a single record, like a single employee, you would hence know that it's stored in some way in that table. All right. The describe function or statement, or, well, it's the function, the first one that we're going to learn, and we're gonna run an example. So you use the describe, and it's abbreviated DESC, and you can write out the whole word or just describe, and it's the command used to display the structure of the table. So I'm going to pause here and bring up our SQL developer and make sure. Oh, wait a minute. I was going to force you all to show me before we go on, because I need to make sure that you all know how to share your screen and all this fun stuff. So hold on. So everyone gets a chance to, okay, let me stop sharing for a second. And I want to make sure you're all awake right now, because I'll ask you to do this later. Okay, where am I? Oh, this new version is annoying. Okay, so everyone is going to have to launch their SQL developer and show me that it's running on your system, desktop, laptop, and Surface. I think you can run SQL developer. Anyone running a Linux distro, Linux distribution? No. You're all wimpy. No, that's right. All right,
It's
who wants to
installed
go
on my
first?
computer, but I boot into Windows for school stuff. It's easier.
All right, Evan, that's good. Okay, so share SQL developer. And then I know you all submitted the assignment, but I want to make sure everyone, okay, Evan, you're good. You get the thumbs up. Now you
Oh,
can,
do I not need to share it anymore?
yep, just close it.
Okay.
Stop share.
I didn't know if we needed it for the whole class or not.
Okay, next, who wants to be next? Jump right in. Okay, I'll have to call out. All right, there you go, Alan. All right, looks good. Next. Come on. You guys not, okay, Richard, go ahead. It's a big test. You get brownie points. And I can go back and check to see. Richard's already running queries. Good job. Okay. I like your cursor. All right, Maria, you're up. All right, good. And Daniel, you're up. All right. Next is Alan.
Oh, you said Alan, you said me?
Yep, Alan, you.
Oh, I had already shared, but I could do it again. I don't mind.
Oh, that's right, you did share. Never
Yeah.
mind. Jordan, you're up.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, you're good.
I have a short memory. Come on.
Sorry about that.
You're all right. Okay. Let's see, who's next? Okay, you can stop, Jordan. Matt, do you have SQL Developer installed? Who just came in? Jose, you're in there twice. What's up with that?
So, okay, I don't know if like my PC did like an update or something or what, but I swear I don't know
Oh,
what happened, but like it's gone.
uh-oh. Yeah, okay. So make sure before we well, because you still need to did you did the assignment, right?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know what happened.
All right.
It is
Okay,
weird.
so this upcoming assignment, you'll have to prove that you've been able to add it back in. It shouldn't be gone. It may, the icon may have just departed. Okay, Jose, yes. All right, looks good. Let me read the message from Garrett. I might be late to class. All right. And is that everyone? Frank, did you get a chance to install SQL Developer?
It's opening right now. I'm downloading it.
Okay, we can come back to you.
Sure.
So let me start the share again. Oh, where's my I'm all confused. Okay, here we go. All right, so I just wanted to show you. Basically, hopefully you all figured out how to start a query development environment in one of two ways. Once you boot it up, you can click on the little plus, or up here, very top, you can barely see it. It says SQL with the little green, I guess, I don't know if it's an emoji or just a character. If you click on that, it will, and can we all see my little, oops, my little,
Yes.
let me make
Yes.
sure I bring up my video panel. All right, so it'll have the name of our database or our schema, and just click OK, and this will launch. It'll take a second. It'll launch a query builder session or tab, and we can all run our describe, and we're going to describe the employees table, and see it does have smart sense, and to get in the habit of completing it, the statement with the semicolon, and then you can either use a shortcut, which is Control Enter, or just click the arrow. And in our output section, we see that there's three components to this describe: the name of the column, if it's null, which means you have to have a value in it, and then the data type. All right. So that's describe, and it can be very helpful if you're trying to figure out what data goes where. And I think I showed you, and then I'm displaying it. Yeah. Any questions about that? That's the describe command. Okay. Let's move ahead. The table structure information is essential, as I said before, if you're trying to figure out what type of data, what the structure of your table. The table is their foundation. You really need to be very comfortable with what type of data goes into each column. And it should be intuitive, but sometimes, especially if we get into conversions and things like that, it can be a little challenging, but not for you all. All right, our first function or our first operation on our data is a concatenation. So what does concatenation mean? Who wants to provide a definition of concatenation? Well, but first, we have to let Frank demonstrate that. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, Frank, it's all on you. Let's see what you got.
I have it on my PC. I'll just turn on the camera and show it on there because I'm playing on the laptop.
Got it. Fair enough.
Let me start it up. How do I flip the camera? I'll just flip it.
You can just turn your laptop.
Like this? Oh, I'll just turn the
You
video.
have a background, so
I'll
making
just
it very complicated.
exciting. Let me turn that background off.
Yeah. And you use the credentials that were listed in Canvas, right? To connect to it. You'll have to do that so that you have access to our ORCL schema,
Okay.
all right? Just follow the instructions that are listed in Canvas. All right. Okie doke. So let's continue. All right, concatenation. Did someone volunteer? What does that word mean? Concatenation. Yeah, you probably thought this is not going to be an English class, is it? All right, well,
I have. Oh,
go ahead,
I was
Evan.
just say I have it. I guess you could say it's like a series of interconnected things. Like it's putting things together almost.
There you go.
Words, things like that. Yeah.
Putting together. That's the definition I was looking for. Connecting or linking together in a series. The symbol in SQL and Oracle, well, most database management systems is two pipes. And we all know what a pipe is on our keyboard. Right above the backward slash next to the, that's called a pipe. So it's a double pipe. That's called the concatenation symbol, double pipe, all right? Values on either side of that double pipe operator can be combined to make a single output column. So here's the syntax: string one, concatenate string two, string, etc. You're basically putting them together. So we're creating a sentence or something that's readable. So in SQL, the concatenation can be linked to columns, and this is usually, let's say we want a result with just first and last name, etc. If they are separated in columns, you can link columns to other columns. You can have arithmetic expressions or constant values to create. So constant values, those are literal values, and that's to create whatever output you need. And we'll see several iterations of that when I go to the examples. So as I said before, it's used to create readable text. So in this example, hopefully this is starting to look familiar to you. This is using the select statement. Remember, the select is pulling something from a table. And I'm going to talk about this a lot because you have to develop kind of the way the select statement works, the order of things, etc. But we have a department ID and department name. Those are column names. And then the table name is departments, right? So select from is your syntax. And as you see the result here, we have everything scrunched together, right? Does everyone see that? Should bring my screen up. So thumbs up, thumbs down. Oh, go away. All right. So that's our first example of concatenation. Notice it puts the data right together. And if you want to, so what do we want to, what would we do if we wanted to add a blank in between those two columns? How would you do that? Put on your logical thinking hat. How would you?
Just add another string with something with just a blank in quotations.
Correct. So a string is surrounded by single quotes. Remember that in SQL. This is, there's several little iterations to understanding the data types and their association to single and double quotes. So this is your first exposure to that. You notice that it's a single quote, and we just have a space between. And notice the structure: column, concatenate, space, concatenate. Yes, it's pretty much literal as far as how you need to put those together. Hence, now we have a space in between the department ID and the department name. Okay. All right, concatenation and column aliases. We're going to talk about aliases. Alias is just another name, especially well, it used to be that column names had to be scientific and followed the database administrator, which sometimes it made no sense. So the whole idea of alias is so you can rename it so that it would make sense to you. So concatenations are useful when it comes to aliases. So let's say we want these two columns, department ID and department name, we're going to alias it, and that uses the keyword as department info. And what will show at the top of your result table is that alias. We're not changing the column names, we're just providing an alias for that concatenation. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward? Okay. All right. And just notice kind of the flow of things in the select statements. You'll be performing that a lot. All right, let's talk about literal values. The term literal means actual value. Remember, we have variables and we have columns, excuse me, but you can actually concatenate literal values in your SQL statement, meaning that if you had terms like dollar or number 1,000, you have to be very careful with concatenation and numbers, depending on what you want to accomplish. And then dates are like strings and other things, but it can be a little bit confusing. But think of it as a date when you start calculating and when we get into that. So the whole idea with concatenation, it's easy to create this whole readable things that you can read, and you can use literal values in many ways to make sure your output is exactly what whomever the requester is. Remember that character and dates, as far as data type, has to be enclosed in single quotes, whereas numbers have no quotes. So if you use concatenation with the column names, now if you use the column names, remember these are representative of literal values. You don't use quotes around the column names. We saw that before with the department ID and department name, right? So here's an example of using a literal, and all that we're using is we're adding this last name of the employee, we're adding this term has a monthly salary of, and then we're using this little $sign, and then we're selecting salary, and then we're aliasing it as just pay. So King has a monthly salary of 24,000. The lucky, he makes quite a lot. He's the CEO, and so on. A readable output. I mean, this was such a big thing. Ooh, wow, you can actually make readable output from your data. So remember, select column name, table, from table. It's always from table. And you'll develop I'll pester you a lot with that. So that is an example of using literal values. Let me go back to this. The literal values is has monthly salary of, and then we add the $sign. Now, you say, isn't there a way using functions to represent a number as currency? Yes, but we haven't gotten there yet. So we're just using literal values to do that. You can also use literal values with calculations, literal values, and then a column for calculation. So notice here, I wanted the yearly salary. You simply just had to multiply the monthly salary by 12, right? Now we get the yearly salary, we just change the verbiage in our literal value, and we actually get how much to be paid. Right? Does that make sense? Waylon is really not being paid enough, I think. Or Raj. Anyway, all right. Another function or operation is the distinct, DISTINCT. And this is basically used to eliminate duplicate rows. If you have a request to show, for example, how many departments do we have in our company. So you need to create a unique instance of what exists in the table. And so you would first write a query to select the department IDs based on my example. So if you see here, you write a simple select statement, select department ID from employees. You see you get a lot of duplicates because you have a lot of employees that are in different departments, right? So if we just wanted to know the number of departments, then the syntax would be select distinct and then department ID. And yes, with the SQL query and this, there's a challenge out there in the ether. It's always select distinct. If you're going to use that for the column, any column, it's always select distinct, and then your column that you're wanting to, identify unique values. Certain systems will process it differently. On Oracle, always select distinct, please. And so now we know we have 7 departments and then one. I think the CEO he's not associated with a department, so he gets a null. All right. So another reminder, it's always select clause and then distinct. That can become very confusing down the line and we're going to talk about multiple columns and all that, the hierarchy, etc. But for now, select distinct and then your column name. All right, see that we just buzzed right through the first lesson. Woohoo! Yeah, no one's eating supper. Did you all eat before you started?
I can show
I
you the
usually eat
bowl.
after this.
Oh, you're gonna eat after this. Oh, I ate before because I may be rambling on for a few hours. I hope not. All right, so our terminology for this lesson: describe, concatenation operator, literal values, and distinct. All right, right into 2.2. So we've just learned how to select records or rows from our table. How do we limit the rows that we select? What do we use? You probably already guessed this. So our objectives applies the syntax to restrict rows within our query, demonstrate the application of the where clause. Yay! The where clause completes the whole scenario. So explain why it's essential from a business perspective to limit data. And I always have to tell my story about the where clause. I had two instances of this where I forgot and I lost my mind. Before we go on, I was working for a university and I was the primary DBA. And so whenever they would, push out a raise for certain departments or certain employees, I would get a request and I actually had to write the query. This is the old days where nothing was really automated. It was all manual. Everyone thought it was some magical robot in the back. So I received a request from an HR department to give certain employees this pretty much 10% raise. I forgot to put in the where clause, and of course everyone got a raise and everyone was happy. So and of course, the leadership was like, "What happened?" All of a sudden we're in hock for too many dollars, and I was very quiet at first, but I had to fess up to it. So now that's a true story. Pretty major university too. Of course, it was 30 years ago, so they haven't found me yet. So don't say anything. Of course, I gave myself a big raise, but no. All right, construct and produce outputs using a SQL query containing character strings and data types. All right. So you ever had an information overload all the time, right? You're streaming on your computer. Your mom is asking you about school. Yeah, how many of your moms chime in while you're doing something else and you're trying to get them to be quiet, but you can't do that. Your cell rings and the dog is barking. Information overload. Would it be nice to restrict all the amount of information so that you can process on time? So this is the job of the where clause. It will definitely help you to organize all of this information. And it is important to choose specific information from a table. If you go into data analytics or database administrator or just a data entry, someone's always requesting specific information and then they're wanting to validate it. And this is usually the case of the where clause. And yes, we have our little database has only 20 employees, 20 rows. The one database that I mentioned and had 40,000, well, it was like 50,000 individuals. Well, it was a large company. And so when you have that large of a company, then you have to be very careful how you do things. So You're going to get a snippet of that, and you're going to be very comfortable. So remember, select is used to retrieve information from your table or database. A select statement must include, at a minimum, we're going to kind of dissect that a little bit. Select and from. Select and from. Remember, select and from. The where clause is optional. You don't necessarily need the where clause. Usually it is required for whatever, whatever your job is, but it is optional. So the syntax here, select and distinct, if you're going to do a distinct, it would go there. You can add an alias. You saw the alias is added with the term or the keyword as AS from table, and then where condition is optional. So how do we use this where clause? It's basically used to limit rows. It contains a condition that must be met directly, and it's directly as far as the order of things after the from clause. So this is the syntax where, and in the column name, it's some type of comparison condition, and then a comparison value. And you're like, well, what does that mean? All right, so let's do this. So the first thing we want to do is select all the employee ID, the first name, last name from the employees, and we'll get 20 rows, right? You're gonna run this. So, but let's say we only want employee 101. So the syntax that we would use for that looks like this. Select employee ID, first name, last name from employees where employee ID is equal to 101. And then we get Kokar, Nina. Makes sense? Pretty straightforward, not complicated whatsoever. So comparison operators, there's several that you can use. We saw the equal sign. You can use equal to, greater than, that's typical comparison, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. All right, those are your comparison. And there's more, but these 6 are the ones that you will use the most, at least initially. All right. So if we had another example, let's select the employee ID, last name, department from employees where department ID is 90. See that we had three returns, King, Kokar, and Dahan. Upper management, oh boy. But there you go. Does that make sense so far? Nothing too crazy. All right, cool. All right, character and date strings in the where clause. We're going to talk a lot about date strings and what it represents, but character, which means that normal strings, they must be, I will remind you again, these data types must be enclosed in single quotes. So if we wrote a query like this, select employee ID, last name, first name from employees where last name is equal to King, we get Stephen, and that's not the writer, that's the CEO.
So when it's
And it's
words or dates, you have to use the quotes.
single quotes. Please remember that, because that will drive you nuts if you forget that. And not double quotes, single quotes. So we write this query here. What do you think it will happen? Is it the same as the one before? You programmers will say, in Python, yes, absolutely. Well, this is SQL, not Python. So you run this query, what happens?
Nothing,
It's
right?
going to
Because
show for the last name if it's King, not any first names.
Right?
So if there's
No, that's
But-
not true,
but
Evan.
the K isn't capitalized, so it won't
Right.
return anything.
Oh,
King will give you nothing. This is the one thing you do have to remember about SQL. It is truly case sensitive. Remember that, you got nothing and you're like, what happened? I know this is right. I don't see any red or, yes, SQL is case sensitive big time. And you'll forget that and you'll wonder, you'll blame your computer. It has to be the computer. It's on some type of drug. So, and we're going to talk about these functions later, upper, lower, and mid cap in future lessons, so you can avoid the headache of case sensitivity. But please remember, SQL is case sensitive. All right. So more comparison operators in the where clause. Or we're going to look at the date. Remember the date. And I'm going to ask you to develop another intuition about how dates. And yes, the data in our database is old. These are actual employees of Oracle. So you're actually, when they built the Oracle Academy way back before most of you were born, probably before all of you were born. So that's the whole claim. That's why the data in this database, this teaching database is old. I'm actually wanting to change that. Maybe just update some dates. But anyway, so if you read through this query, and it's another select from employees where hire date is less than. Now, when I place a condition like that, does that mean everyone was hired before January 1st, 2000, or before or after? What do you think?
Before.
Before. Remember, as you progress in dates, then the number gets higher. There's actually a number in the back end of that, if you want to think of it that way. So January 1, 2000, and most of all the employees were hired before then, I think. I think there's one that was hired after that, but all right. And another example, greater than or equal to as far as salary. And remember, the salary in the database is monthly salary, so we're wanting to bring back anyone that makes more than 6,000. And your math head, you put on your math hat, greater than or equal to, which means that 6,000 will still show, and it's in there somewhere for Bruce Ernst. And then finally, select employee ID, last name, first name, or job ID, and this is just another string. And remember the case sensitivity. So these are all the IT geeks in the company. So I do want you to remind yourself of the case sensitivity with your comparison operators. And when you get that return result and there's nothing, well, if you don't get an error message, it's usually something that has to do with your string or date or something. So I ran this query, or you can run this query. Which rules would be selected from this query? And you can just describe it. Anyone who makes less than 4,400, right? So does that include 4,400? This is just a lesson in attention to details. So you would say yes, right? And so Jennifer Whalen, she makes 4,400, and then everyone that makes less. And remember that. Attention to detail is so important when you're dealing with data. And it truly is. It can drive you nuts. All right, lesson 2, buzz right through it. The where clause. The where clause is your friend and your enemy right now. Make sure you're very comfortable with what you do with this clause in your select statement. And the comparison operators is another part. Whoops, my mouse is going crazy. And we're going to go into comparison operators a little more. What we can do with that, but select from where. Remember that sequence, please. All right. So our objectives: apply the proper comparison operator to return as a desired result. And I buzzed through that, but usually someone will come marching into your office and say, I need this. And they will have no descriptive details, and you'll have to figure it out. Use your critical thinking skills. But we do have other comparison operators that you can use in lieu of the equals, greater than, less than, etc. These are called conditions, kind of word conditions. And then we're also going to talk about null. And I'm going to kind of slide into the whole idea of null. I always ask the question, what is the value of null? Does null actually have a value? How would you answer that prompt?
It has no value.
Yep.
What does that mean? Is it 0 or blank or what?
It'd be 0. You guys don't have the information, I'm guessing.
No,
Unknown.
Data.
It's unknown.
it's unknown. Remember that. It's unassigned, unknown, inapplicable. That is null. Null is not 0. And I throw this out right away because that once we start dealing with nulls and what that represents, it can drive you nuts because your results, null changes the whole idea of your results in it. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about comparison conditions and null. And the purpose, we use comparison every day in our conversations. I can meet between 10 and 11. I think I had that conversation today. I'm looking for a pair of jeans like the ones you're wearing, copycat. If I remember correctly, the best concert seats are in rows. So we're using the little terms here to have you identify these three types of comparison operators in SQL. So comparison conditions are used to find data. You can probably figure that out. Building a select statement to return specific data. Yes, we know that. All right. So you're familiar probably with equal and less than and greater than. I'm going to introduce you to three more that can be very useful, kind of make your queries make a little, maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. There's a between and, between dot dot and, there's the in, and then there's the like that you can use, those three. You're like, uh-oh, now we're getting a little complicated. Don't think that way, they're pretty straightforward. So the between and operator is used to select and display rows based on a range of values. So now that begins to make sense. So when you use it in your where clause, you go where whatever your column is that you're testing is between and it will return from the lower limit to the upper limit. And yes, the lower limit is identified and the upper limit is identified in your between and. And so take a look at this query. Select last name, first name, salary from employees where salary between 9,000 and 11,000. Remember, that will include both 9,000 and 11,000. Those are your lower and upper limits, okay? All right, so it is an inclusive statement. And if you want to compare this, the same query, you can run with the same results using the greater than equal to and the keyword less than equal to, but that seems a little more messy, right? It depends, but that will return the same result with the lower and upper limits. Just the representation of you know, the greater than equal to and less than equal to. So these are the same queries, just phrased different way, as you see with the results. No trick, they are the same queries. And according to Oracle, the between and does provide, you know, a level of simplicity for your code. It's easier to read the query. Well, I guess, but you have to develop a intuition. Okay, the end condition. It's also known as a membership condition. So it's used to test whether a requested value is in a group of values or a set of values. For example, we could use this to identify employees whose ID numbers are in are 100, 101, or 102. And it's just a list that you're comparing it to. Or department IDs are 40, 50, or 60. So here's the syntax. Select employee ID, last name, first name, where employee ID is in, so it's going to be 100, 101, or 102, right? And then the departments, it's a list, and the list is separated by commas. And can you use this with strings? Yes, or dates, or anything, any data type, as long as you know, as far as structure of the list, separated by columns. It will compare your query to each one of those. Now that is really truly simplifying your query if you can run this to create your results. All right, and here's an example with strings. So we're looking at countries, right? And without the in, you would have to write it this way using an or, and that's a little bit more cumbersome. And this is easier to read, as you can see. So yes, syntax efficiency. Now, like is a little bit different. So here's our premise. Have you gone shopping to look for something that you saw in a magazine or television, but you were not sure of the exact item? It's much the same with database searches. So this is kind of like a search. A manager may know that an employee's last name starts with an S, but does not know the employee's. Well, that's a bad manager. I threw him out. But anyway, SQL has a condition function called like, and basically there's two symbols that you need to use with the like. It's either a percent or an underscore. And these are pretty much known as a wildcard. So I'll show you how those are represented in the like. So if you take a look at this query here, the percent symbol is used to represent any sequence of 0 or more characters, any sequence, so even 0. So select last name from employees where last name like, so that underscore is, is a single character. And this is a lowercase o, and then any series of characters after that. And then you see the results here. We're using that O, so it's going to be a single character and then an O to start, and then anything after. So you see it's Kokar, Lorenz, Morgos. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Result. Right. Very good way to represent that. All right. So which of the following names could return with the same query? So which would return? 1 through 5. Or 1 through 4, and then 5 is all.
All of them.
All of them.
Does
Yeah,
everyone say
all of
all?
them.
Does everyone see that? So the percent could be 0 or no letter. So that's why mole is returned. Yes, all, because we have that second. So as long as the second
Yeah.
character is an O, lowercase o, then yes. Good job. All right, so one additional important option when an exact match is needed with a string that has a percent or character, so or the underscore, we have to use an escape option and to indicate that these characters are part of the string. So if you have an underscore or a percent as a part of the string, then, and this is kind of back into the programming. So for example, if we wanted to retrieve employee's job ID, the job ID has an underscore in it. And we want to look at the pattern underscore R for the job ID, and it's just a requirement. We do have to write it in a way using an escape character. So essentially what we do, we take a look at this query and see the results. So you have to use the escape character, and then you have to define what the escape character here is in here. In this case, we're defining the escape character as the backward slash, and basically we're looking for the percent. So any return that has basically, because we're using the escape character for the underscore and then an R. So any letters before that, any letters after. So we're just looking for any letters underscore and R, which is why we got the sales rep, the MK rep. Does everyone see that? Does that make sense? You have to make sure, and you can use any, and the backward slash is used as the default because it's easier to see. And that's kind of the standard programming language, but you can use any character as an escape character. All right. And I just went through that. So without the escape character, obviously, if we ran that, we would not get the results we're looking for. So it's just going to return anything with an underscore and with an R, which, yeah, now that you're like, your manager is saying, what, this doesn't mean anything to me. You're not satisfying the results, so yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about null quite a bit, but there's two functions that I want you to introduce you to right away that you can use in your where clause is null and is not null. And yes, they basically say what they are. So remember null, what was null again? What is null 0?
No, null is
space.
It's
unknown.
unknown.
It's undefined, unavailable, unknown, inapplicable, anything with un in front of it is probably null. So testing for null, and believe me, well, it's not such a big thing now, but in the old days, we had to test for null all the time because the data entry people would not enter the right information or miss some things. So for example, knowing all the dates in January that do not have an event scheduled, just so you have an event. So you can use the is null condition test in a data list. And basically the opposite of that, sort of, is not null to test as a where condition. So when we look at this, this example, so we're looking at the last name, manager ID. You have that in your employees table where manager ID is null. And we know that King does not answer to anyone. So yes, his manager ID is null, or maybe we should put God there. But anyway, you want to make sure you understand that that's the result. And in our SQL developer, it doesn't really include null. It'll just use it, a tag or a hash, and that represents null. Just remember that. All right, another example, we have commission percentage in there. We want to bring a result, or return a result of the employees that actually have a commission percentage. So we use the is not null. And so select last name commission percentage from employees where commission percentage is not null. And we have 4 employees, which are sales. They rely on those commission percentages for everything. Zotke, Abel, Taylor, and Grant. Once again, if you're looking for that result, that would help you satisfy that return. So is null, is not null, very useful in your where clause, especially if you're trying to fix a problem or recognize if there is an issue. Phew. All right. So our terminology for this lesson, between and in, like, and is null, is not null. All right. So we buzzed right through that. All right. So before we go further, let me just highlight what you're responsible for this week. But like I said, we're going to have an extra credit opportunity coming up. Oh, I can't show any of your grades. So we're in week 2 already. I know you're all very happy about that. So moving right along. Okay. Canvas, week 2 or module 2. All right, so select statement and where clause. Hopefully you're all very comfortable with that. Our lecture and video will go here. There's some module videos on those. If you're struggling with, some of the things that I'm saying, and I think I made sure there was not any broken. They're all YouTube, so you can search them. Some of them are pretty entertaining. Some of them are pretty dry. They're all pretty short. So if you need extra resources, please watch the videos. I try to make sure you have everything you need, but it's never, it's never a bad thing to get more resources. And then every week from now on, you only got past this last week, I'm going to provide a list of, just basically practice queries, just a whole bunch of them. And the good thing about this is a PDF. You can copy, download, or copy. Be very careful if you copy from the preview. I would download it, open it up in Adobe or whatever, and you can copy these and paste them right in Developer. Just run them and say, woohoo, I'm a SQL guru. Right.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
It's just a list, and you get these every week. Some of them will lessen some of the angst about what they do. These are pretty straightforward. Usually I'll go over one or more of them anyway, but take that list and run them so you get more comfortable with query. It's a good idea. And then not only that, I'm going to provide you with kind of a snippet, and I will suggest pay attention to these because the quizzes, the exams, all of that come from these little practice and solutions. And I decided to just, because before it was practice and then you would have the solutions, I decided to just create one document I would read through it, know the terms, and the syntax, and it just basically gives you all the answers. But it's a good way to refresh your memory on some of these. You can run some of the queries, compare the results, etc. So each of the documents are connected to one of the sections, and yes, some of them will have like a little multiple choice quiz that you can verify information. All very good stuff to help you become more and more comfortable with SQL. And so we have 3 sections. I highlight a few things, and all of these tables should be, because we made sure all of the tables in your practice and solutions are in the SQL developer. So I would definitely get, practice becomes the best thing for you in SQL.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all that these are. You don't have to turn them in or anything. They're just for practice. All right. Lots of good things, lots of good queries, some questions to answer, etc.
Yeah.
All right. And then what you're required to do, and it's basically an assignment, and it's a document. So I would preview it, download it. What I'm going to require that you do, and please, I always get a lot of pushback or different iterations. Use this document to answer. Some of them will have objectives. Some of them will. I think I pulled most of the objectives out. But paste your screenshots of your responses to the questions right in the document, please. It makes it easier for me to grade, and I don't have to go back and forth. So it's all about making it easier for me, right? If you make it hard for me, I'm going to give you a bad grade. But it is a document that you can download, and after you create it, well, I don't know. I don't know if Frank has 2 computers. I would basically run your SQL developer and open Canvas so you can download this document or not download it. Well, you don't really have, well, you can download it and then you can add your screenshots. I'm confused myself. So your job is to answer all the questions, and they're all associated with queries. You're given the table, and there's several different tables, not all the employees table, and you're writing a query. So what I'd like to see, bring over. So, and we all know how to take screenshots, right?
Yeah.
On Windows, I mean, we have the snipping tool. It's a piece of cake now. So basically, let's just run a very simple. And while I'm doing this star here, that's called a wildcard. That will return all of the columns. And if you hover over it, SQL Developer will even tell you all of these columns are going to be returned. So if I run this query, so all that I'm asking you to do is take a screenshot of this. Now, of course, I'm not going to get all of the columns. You don't have to have all the columns, but I know how many rows to expect. I'm pretty sure I know how to read the query. Just take a screenshot of that, add it to the document. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm expecting. Not too much of a big deal. And it proves to me that you have SQL Developer running, because believe me, I've had a lot of pushback on that. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. Well, there's no need to use AI or anything like that. Just run the query. And, but anyway, so that's the assignment. There's 10 questions in there to respond to. And yes, 2 points a question. That's how I grade it with the rubric. And then you have the quiz. And remember, let's see. Oh, whoops. Frank, I hope that you got that question answered, because the port is in the document. Anyway, sorry, it took me a while to read that. All right. So the quiz, module 2 quiz, under 3 sections, and all of the quiz questions come from the lecture, or the homework, or the practice queries. And if you pay attention to all that, you won't have a problem. And these are all due on Super Bowl Sunday. And yes, I like to grade it all before the game comes on. Because if you wait until the game comes on and the Seahawks do not win, everyone's getting a 0. So that's just the way it is. All right. So that's your responsibility for this week. Well, what I like to try now, oops, start there. You're all going to have a chance to get some extra credit points. Oops, don't end the meeting. And yes, how many of you have heard of the quizzing, entertaining, whatever environment called Kahoot? We're going to run a Kahoot. I run it in my other classes, and the students, annoyingly enough, actually enjoy it. So they're like, and wait a minute, you made us learn something and we had fun and we had to listen to that strange music. Yep, all of that. So here we go. We're going to run a Kahoot, and it'll last. So please join. You either go to kahoot.it, or you can use your phone or your computer. If you don't use your computer, just go to kahoot.it and then enter in the game pin as it says there. Oh, and this is the football music. So everyone please join, and please use your name, not your cat's name or friend's name. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 10 of you. And if you don't want to participate, that's fine. But everyone that makes it to the podium gets extra credit. Always use extra credit, right? 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, someone's missing. Missing. Oh, I counted myself. Never mind. I'm missing. I'm here. Here. All right. All right, let's get started. So this is based on what you just learned, so you can do it. Tables, queries, and operators. What is the primary purpose of a table in an Oracle relational database system? We're going to talk about the why. What's the purpose of a table? Yes, to store data in rows and columns. And to format output, that's the tricky part of the question. So let's see how he did. Daniel, Jordan, Richard, Frank. All right, come on. True or false? The table row represents a single record. These are not trick questions, so don't overthink them. That is true. A single record, remember I said record row. You guys are overthinking, don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself if you start overthinking. Which command displays the structure of a table? That was way back in the beginning of the lecture. Yes, describe or DESC. All right, we have some good test takers. All right. Which of the following does the DSC command return? Now this is an exercise in memorization. I know I'm not giving you a lot of time for this, but yeah, most of you got it. Column names, data types, then nullable status. Oh, that changed. Richard's on fire. Maria's doing good. True or false? The concatenation operator in SQL is the double pipe. That is true. All right. Why are column aliases useful? Why? Yes, rename column headings. So it's useful. You can rename them to whatever you like so that they make sense. All right. Which of the following is an example of a literal value? Yes, that date in the single quotes, that's the key. Employee ID is a column, not a literal value. Right. True or false? Distinct eliminates duplicate rows from query results. It is true. Right. Where must the distinct keyword appear in the select statement? Directly after the select. I said that a few times. In Oracle, it has to be after the select. What is the purpose of the where clause? Why do we use it? Yeah, this one's a little. No, it's not to sort data. No. That's kind of tricky, but it's not used to sort data. It's only used to limit rows on return. I can understand getting caught in the sort data, kind of, but its first purpose is to limit. True or false? Character strings in the where clause are case sensitive. I like that background. That's just crazy. True. Almost done. You can make it. Which operator selects a range of values? Yes, that's between and range of values. True or false? Is null is used to test for missing or unknown data. True. And finally, this is a poll. You don't have to answer, but which crazy team will win the Super Bowl? Seahawks, Patriots. I don't like football or any other sports, and I really don't care. All right, everyone's going for the Seahawks. If you didn't care, well, that's it. You're getting a 0. I'll figure out who you are. But I think the Seahawks are going to win. All right, let's see how we did. Evan, good job. And then Daniel, and then Maria embarrassed you all. You got them all right, Maria?
Yeah.
No? No, you did really well. All right, so those 3 have extra credit points in the hopper. Every other week or so, I may have a code, I may not, but all right. Thank you all for indulging me on that side of the spectrum. I think that's any questions about the assignment or anything like that.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Pretty straightforward. Like I said, get the work done and no problems will ensue. We're here. All right. Otherwise, pretty easy, right? Or pretty so far. Nothing too complicated to worry about. Let's see, Garrett or Leah didn't show up. All right. Any last minute questions?
Not for me.
All right.
I have two quick ones.
Go ahead.
Probably already know the answer to the first one. It is, since everything is case sensitive in SQL, I'm assuming our command clauses like select and from all have to be capital, correct?
No. The commands are not case sensitive.
Okay. And then
Just the data.
secondly, in the screenshots of everything, the main statement, like the select and from, did not have a semicolon at the end, but the where clauses did. But then when you just ran one, your select and from had a semicolon at the end. So
Okay, so that's a good question. So let me just bring that query back up. Let me share my screen here. Because that's a very good question. So I'm going to add a where clause in this before I bring it back up. Where department ID equals 90. All right. Share. All right. So in this query, you see that the semicolon has to come at the end. Now, you can run this query without it. It's not, you don't necessarily need it in this development environment, but it is good practice, and there's a reason for that. But do not put a semicolon anywhere else but at the end of the clause, okay?
So if you put the where statement down below, does the semicolon only go after where, or does it go after each line?
It goes at the very end. So this is still a query.
Okay.
The compiler will read that. It'll actually read to the semicolon. And sometimes you want to organize it that way because your result is shorter to lessen the amount of material or the width of your screenshot, etc. But yes, you can, because you may have columns here and you want to do it something like this.
Okay. So it's the end of the query, not necessarily each line of code per se.
That's correct. A little
Perfect.
bit different than programming.
Thank you.
The end of the query. Good question. All right. All right. Any other questions or comments? Did y'all learn something this evening? You learned
Yeah, I did.
8
Yeah.
cookies, didn't you? Except for Maria, she's an expert, I can tell. But well, I'll bug you with those every now and then, but anyway, thank you all and finish the assignment. I will see you all next Monday.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, sir.